Hello, my name's Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast for intermediate to advanced level English learners. Sometimes a country will change its name. In recent years, Swaziland became Eswatini, Cape Verde became Cabo Verde, and Turkey is now Türkiye. But why do countries change their names? Let's discuss this today on Thinking in English. You can find the full transcript for free on the Thinking in English blog. Head over to my Instagram page, Thinking in English Podcast, for more great content. And leave a like, follow, rating, review, wherever you are listening right now. Here is today's vocabulary list. As always, the written list is available in the description of the podcast and also on my blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Intention. Intention. Something that you want and plan to do. As in, it wasn't my intention to exclude her from the party. I just forgot. Anglicised. Anglicised. Made English in sound, appearance, or character. For example, immigrants to the US often anglicized their names. Pride. Pride. Feelings of worth and respect, such as the country's national pride has been damaged by sporting failures. Synonymous. Synonymous. Having the same meaning. For example, the words annoyed and irritated are synonymous. To adopt. To adopt. To accept or start to use something new. As in, I think it's time to adopt a new approach to climate change. To ditch. To ditch. To get rid of something that is no longer wanted. As in, the criminals ditched the stolen car in a different town. To signal. To signal. To show that you intend or are ready to do something. As in, the death of Chairman Mao signaled the end of an era in Chinese history. Long-standing. Long-standing. Having existed for a long time. For instance, he broke out of a long-standing agreement. Spanning the border between Europe and Asia, Turkey is a beautiful country with a rich culture, fascinating history, and friendly people. Turkey is home to the world-famous Cappadocia Balloon Festival, the world's oldest religious site called Göbekli Tepe, and some of the most delicious food around the entire globe. And perhaps most importantly, Turkey has a lot of Thinking in English listeners. So thank you all so much for listening. Actually, I should apologize here. I made a mistake in my last paragraph. Can you spot what the mistake was? Did you notice my error? Perhaps some of my Turkish listeners picked up on it. I called the country the wrong English name. As of earlier this year, the country is officially known in English by its Turkish name, Türkiye. And I apologize for the pronunciation if I'm wrong. In late 2021, the Turkish leader Recep Erdogan announced his intention to leave behind the anglicized name Turkey and instead use Türkiye, the country's name in Turkish, for all purposes. Although the pronunciation of both names is quite similar, they are written very differently. The request was accepted by the UN and is already in use in all government websites, official announcements, and every Turkish brand is using the name Türkiye. As many of you probably know, aside from formally being the name of a country, a turkey is also a relatively ugly bird, commonly eaten for Thanksgiving in the USA and Christmas in the UK. Interestingly, this is thought to be one of the main reasons for the name change. President Erdogan and his supporters were tired and annoyed by the association between the word turkey and the bird. This is even more understandable when you consider that the word turkey is also used informally to refer to something that is extremely or completely unsuccessful. However, the decision to change the English name to Türkiye is also an attempt at increasing national pride. According to Erdogan, the phrase Türkiye represents and expresses the culture, civilization, and values of the nation in the best way. Türkiye is the Turkish name for the country, and Erdogan wants this to be the international name too. According to some of my Turkish friends, most people in the country don't really care that much. Of course, they have called the country Türkiye in their own language for hundreds of years, but the English translation of Turkey has remained globally widespread and popular. Turkey has been struggling with an economic crisis, massive inflation, and political problems, and many people see this new name change as an attempt to boost Erdogan's popularity before next year's elections. But Turkey is not the only country to change their official English name. In recent years, quite a few countries have done the same. For example, in 2020, the Netherlands officially stopped using the nickname Holland in official situations. Holland only ever referred to a region of the Netherlands, the region with Amsterdam and The Hague and I think Rotterdam, but it had become synonymous with the country in many places. The Dutch government, tourism industry, and businesses have all agreed to stop using the name Holland. In 2019, the Republic of Macedonia changed their name to the Republic of North Macedonia to settle a dispute with Greece. Greece also has a region called Macedonia, and by changing the country's name, North Macedonia was able to convince Greece to support their admission to NATO in 2020. In 2018, the African country formerly known as the Kingdom of Swaziland changed the official English name to Eswatini to celebrate 50 years of independence. Eswatini translates to land of the Swazis, almost a direct from their English. Or the English is a direct from Eswatini, the name in their native language. In 2016, the Czech Republic registered the name Czechia with the UN. However, this name has not been widely adopted across the world yet. I only learned about the name change in 2020 from my Czech roommate, and apparently the Czech Prime Minister, Andrej Babis, also refused to use the country's new official name in 2020. The Czech government had wanted to use the shorter name Czechia to be in line with other countries. I think the Czech Republic was one of the only countries in the world to use the long official name regularly. For example, the full name of my country is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, but it is commonly known as the United Kingdom. Until 2016, the Czech Republic had no short name. And in 2013, the West African island country Cape Verde became known as Cabo Verde. Portuguese is the official language of the country, and the new name replaces the English word Cape with the Portuguese translation Cabo. As you can see from the previous 6 examples of countries changing their names, there are numerous different reasons and motivations to do so. Turkey changed their name for reasons of national pride and to avoid confusion with the bird. The Netherlands ditched Holland to distance itself from negative stereotypes associated with that name. Eswatini and Cabo Verde both chose names in their own languages. North Macedonia changed to settle an argument with Greece, and the Czech Republic wanted a shorter, more catchy name. Some name changes are motivated by getting rid of names imposed by colonizers. India is a great example of this. The cities Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras became Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai after independence from the UK. Burma became Myanmar, Rhodesia became Zimbabwe, Ceylon became Sri Lanka, and so on. Once independent from their colonizers, many countries chose to throw out European inspired names and instead choose names from their own languages and that reflected their own cultures. Regardless of the specific reason for changing names, I think the overall motivation is that leaders of the countries want to control their national identity and culture. Changing a name can signal a change in culture, politics, or identity. Think about Ukraine. Growing up in England, we largely used the Russian language name Kiev for the capital city. But only a few days after the war began, the world started using the Ukrainian name Kyiv to signal their support for the invaded country. There is barely a place in the entire world where a name doesn't upset or annoy someone. Names are always political. They tell a story of language and history. And by changing names, a country's leader can try to control the country's national identity. So, does changing a name really matter? Well, sometimes name changes are quickly accepted by the world. And this most often happens when there is a completely new and unrelated name to the previous. It is much harder for people to get confused when there are two completely separate names. However, when the new name is very similar to the old one, it can be confusing. The Czech Republic has this problem with Czechia. The request to get rid of a long standing English name and replace it with a new but similar alternative is not always respected. Turkey is likely to have this issue with Türkiye. The key point is that foreign places have old and well known English names. Many of my listeners are from Italy. An English speaker like me would refer to Rome instead of Roma and Italy instead of Italia. And in your language, the chances are that you don't call countries by the name they want either. I'm from the UK, but in Japan, I come from Igirisu. And in Taiwan, I was from Yingguo. There are a lot of countries that call themselves something different from what the world does. In fact, Turkey is surrounded by Hellas, Sakartvelo, and Hayastan. Have you heard of these countries before? Because in English, they are better known as Greece, Georgia, and Armenia. Deutschland is Germany, Nippon is Japan, Polska is Poland, Suomi is Finland. Sometimes countries even have multiple names for themselves, especially if they have multiple languages. India has about 14 different official names. A country can choose what they call themselves, but they can't force other countries, peoples, and languages to use that new name. It's really difficult to abandon old names that we have got used to. And this is something that the Turkish government will likely discover. So here is today's final thought. On today's episode of Thinking in English, I have discussed why countries change their names. Turkey has recently become Turkey, officially in English, and they are not the only country to do it. Reasons for adopting a new name are various: the legacy of colonialism, confusion with other areas, or to make the name shorter, or use a new language. But it can be difficult to make other languages follow these new rules. There are long standing naming traditions and conventions in English, and it is not easy to change these. So, what is your country called in your native language? And then what is it called in English? Is it the same? Is it different? Let me know in the comments on the blog, the comments on Spotify, or send me a message on Instagram. I'm always really happy and interested to hear from my listeners. In fact, while you're leaving a message on Instagram, why don't you follow me as well? We're getting closer and closer to 5,000 followers. Leave a like, a rating, a review, or a follow wherever you are listening right now. We recently hit 1,000 ratings on Spotify, which is absolutely amazing. I wonder when we'll get to 2,000. I want to be the world's biggest English language podcast. Not English language, English learning podcast, I guess. If you'd like to donate to Thinking in English, you can do. The link is in the description and also on the blog. And other than that, I want to say have a great week. Thank you for listening.